My name is Ian Ayers. I'm the VP of Aggregation here at SunTribe Trading. SunTribe Trading has been doing SREC aggregation in Virginia for just over 2 years now. The market opened up in 2020. And so I'm going to try to efficiently use some of this time during your lunch hour to get some key information across. So we'll spend about 20 minutes going through some prepared slides, and then we'll open it up for your questions. And that's, I think, where it usually gets interesting. And so I will just jump right into it and start here. If you have questions, please put them in the chat. We have 2 other people, Daniel Wilson and Dylan Wright from SunTribe. There's Daniel. We'll be answering questions and kind of keeping track of that to make sure that we can get those questions answered as they pop up. All right. So SRECs, my favorite topic of all time here. Let's go. All right. So if you have a solar system, a PV photovoltaic system on your roof, you can get 3 types of incentives. And I start like this because it's often confusing what an SREC, if it competes with any of these other types of incentives, and it does not. So the main type of incentive that you get when you have a solar system is that you can sell excess energy back to the grid or back to your local connected utility. And that energy credit, it shows up as a reduction of your bill or a credit. And you also are pulling less from the grid. And so because you're consuming some of the energy your system makes in your household, so your bill goes down. So there's kind of credited energy is one big category. And then tax credits, federal tax credits that you can claim the expenditure of your solar system. That's another massive form of credit, and that's kind of a one-time credit. And then the third option is SRECs. Solar renewable energy certificates are a separate payment that you can get that does not compete with these other 2. And you have to sign up for SRECs. There's some choices involved with signing up for SRECs. Your installer kind of may initiate the process of signing up for SRECs, or you may have done that on your own. And so we at SunTribe Trading focus on getting you set up and registered to make these certificates so that you can earn money on them for them. Some really key concepts, really big questions that are people swimming in your mind might be, are SRECs the same as carbon offsets? That's a no. If you sign up for SRECs, do I lose any other incentives or credits? No, we haven't heard from a single customer. Thousands of customers, nobody has ever complained that they signed up for SRECs and something changed on their energy bill or anything of that nature. And are you automatically registered for SRECs just by having a solar system or getting set up for net metering? No, so there is some action that's required on your behalf. Another big concept here, SRECs are not energy. So getting set up to trade and sell and monetize your SRECs is not the same as monetizing the energy that your system makes. And so when people say, oh, I'm going to sell my SRECs, are you selling your energy by doing that? Definitely not. So a renewable energy certificate, or renewable energy credit, as some people refer to them, it's a digital certificate, right, made on a computer that represents something very finite. 1 REC, or SREC, if it's the solar variety of REC, is equivalent to the renewableness associated with your system having generated 1 megawatt hour of energy. And so again, it doesn't say 1 REC equals 1 megawatt hour of energy. It's actually the renewableness associated with that 1 megawatt hour of energy. It's a property of the energy your system made. And that is important to certify to differentiate the energy that your system made. And so just from a basic principle here, let's say you have a 10 kilowatt DC rated system and it operates at full capacity for 2 hours. That would make 20 kilowatt hours of energy. So 10 kilowatts is a measure of system power, and then kilowatt hours, when you add that H there at the end, that represents energy. All right, and so in this case, the solar system is making energy, but what it's also making are these, or if it's set up to do so, to make these certificates that represent the attribute of the energy. And so if you think you have a large grid of interconnected load on the network and supply on a large grid network, You have some generators that are not renewable, fossil fuel plants. They're making energy and contributing that to grid, which you can think of as a large lake. There's all these streams that feed into the lake, and then there's these outlets where the load is, or the energy is being consumed on the grid. And because the markets are trying to value, there's some extra value associated with energy being renewable, and it's important to track it. And so once all the energy gets on the grid, you can't differentiate it. There's no way to tell. And so there's this other layer, this kind of logical electronic layer that's overlaid on top of an energy grid, so that we can track the sources and uses of certain attributes of the energy. And that's what SRECs enable. For large utility scale renewable generators, the energy and the attribute of the energy are often bundled together. But for smaller generators that we call behind the meter in the house, in the network, in the grid, the energy is often decoupled or unbundled from the energy, and there's a separate income source associated with trading the renewable attribute of the energy. It's important to have a market, right, where you can say, I want to buy renewable energy. Well, if you want renewable energy, you can't just put an extension cord from the local renewable generator to your house. You need to use the certificates as a very exacting way to know the sources and uses of the different types of energy. And so SRECs are often used to substantiate compliance toward a goal in a state. So for example, in 2020, the Virginia Clean Economy Act was passed, which has this goal of being 100% clean energy in Virginia by 2045, 2050, which includes nuclear as a carbonless energy source. And so we're trying to change the mix of the energy that is supplied to Virginia over time to through 2050. And so we're starting with a very tiny bit of that being solar. And so this Virginia Clean Economy Act, over time, if you can imagine from now to 2050, there's a percentage of the overall energy has to come from renewable sources or clean sources as the years go by. And that eventually, that overall source needs to be 100% by about 2050, 2045. And what this little magenta line on the bottom represents is a special carve out in the law, which says that of the total amount of clean energy that the state is hoping to procure in a given year, 1% of that renewable energy needs to come from small generators or distributed energy generators, DER generators, of which rooftop PV solar is the primary source of that DER energy. So 1% of the annual target is the Virginia solar carve out, as we call it. So it's a tiny sliver, but it's an important sliver. And so the Virginia Clean Economy Act has this carve out, which is hard fought solar incentive for people like you who take the risk, put their capital, their private money out there to get solar on their roof, and basically getting set up to mint your SRECs and to sell those. You're essentially selling those back to to Dominion, one of the large generating utilities in the state, which will then show those utilities to the state as proof that they're meeting their targets for the percentage of energy that comes from renewable, and specifically from small renewable generators in the state. So we'll return to this a little bit more, but when you hear about the solar carve out, this is what that is. And so this is SRECs are like legitimately a hard thing to wrap your head around. We still struggle to kind of explain this in an elegant way. So I'm going to try to do that right here, but if you don't fully get this, that's okay. It's just not that easy. So if you have solar on your home, you set up with a net metering, right, where you have a meter that, depending on what you're consuming in terms of energy in your house, it may be taking energy from the grid in the middle of the night when there's no energy being produced by your solar and you're fully getting your energy from the grid. There may be times during the day when you're not home and there's excess energy being generated by your solar and you're not consuming any. So all of that extra energy is going back to the grid. Now, in both of those scenarios, whether you're taking from the grid or you're pushing it to the grid, that is undifferentiated energy. The grid doesn't know that you're selling it solar energy. It just doesn't know. I mean, you may have gotten registered, so the utility knows you have a solar system, but you're not getting a premium on your utility bill because specifically it's solar or renewable. You're just getting credited energy. So you're basically left with like, there's this other stream of value that your system has, which is the renewableness nature of that energy. And so because of the VCEA in Virginia, that renewable attribute of the energy has value. So if you don't get set up to make the SRECs, you won't be able to cash in on that extra incentive. Another key concept here is that SRECs are not made based on how much energy you consume or what you net meter back to the grid. You make SRECs based on the absolute amount of energy that your system produces. Whether or not you consume it in your home or whether you send it back to the grid as excess energy, the SREC quantifies the exact amount of energy that you make in a given month over time from your generator. So that's a key concept that you have to understand, that you say, oh, will I only be able to make SRECs from what I sell back to the grid or from what I consume or what the avoided energy? No, you just make it based on what you produce. So when you log into your portal for your inverter, if you're Enphase or SolarEdge and it says amount produced, that's the number that will be converted into SRECs each month. And so great, now you have these SRECs that you've gotten registered for and they're sitting there, and how do you get paid for them? That's where aggregators like SunTribe Trading fit into this picture. So you make your RECs, the aggregator manages the creation of the RECs and the trading of those RECs on your behalf, because a bulk buyer, in the case of Virginia Dominion, does not buy onesie, twosies RECs from solar generator owners. They're going to buy many thousands of RECs at a time, and they don't want to talk to customers. They'll talk to a couple of big suppliers of energy, of which SunTribe is largest aggregator for residential solar in Virginia. And so we take all those RECs and we work and we negotiate with the buyer to get different pricing so that you can get the best pricing for your SRECs. And there are a couple different aggregators out there, and obviously I'm partial to SunTribe being the strongest in Virginia at the moment and since we started. So we do everything from getting you registered, answering questions, setting up how you're going to do direct deposit, getting your system details into the registration the REC tracking system, which is called PJM GATS. That's the multi-state agency that is responsible for creating, or what we call minting, the SRECs on behalf of individual generators. And that's a laborious process. It's kind of a bureaucratic one, and we specialize in getting that done quickly for customers, answering questions, and keeping track of all the RECs. And so aggregators buy SRECs from system owners, that's you, in a couple of ways. The most basic way is to sell the RECs as they're made at a market price. Our option for this is called mint and sell. You mint the REC, we sell the REC, you get the market price. We also offer, as others do, a one-time payment for 15 years worth of SRECs that your system is expected to make in the future. That's for people who want a lump sum. And we also offer an option to lock in the price for a period of 3 or 5 years. And that also includes kind of a prepayment. And each of those, all three of these have different advantages that might be the ones that are most important to you. So from here, I'm going to kind of stop here and I'm going to show you our website so that you can see what these options look like at SunTribe Trading. We'll do that. All right, let's share the screen. Okay, so if you have filled out our seller interview series of questions on our website, and you completed that, you've probably landed on a web page that looks like this at SunTribe Trading. If your installer has pre-provided some information to SunTribe Trading about your system and about you, you've also received a link to a page that looks like this. And this page is what it says here: review the different options to sell your SRECs. no matter what option you select, we're going to register your system. We will be responsible for reporting to that tracking system every month how much energy you make to make your SRECs. So really, it's like, what are the commercial terms that you'd like to be paid for these SRECs? The most basic option is this mint and sell option, where there's a recent market price. This is actually more recent. This is May. We've been trading SRECs at about $55 right now. In this option, if you select this option, you would be also subject to each REC that's transacted. There's a 7.5% management fee and a 2% transaction fee. That's an industry low number for the fees associated with selling SRECs on the spot market. We definitely will get more into the dynamics of what this market looks like, how it operates, what's the future look like, but this is a very basic option. Each of these options has a way to see the contract and preview the contract to understand the different ways that we pay you and the different rules associated with that. So going back to the options, so that's the most basic option. The 15-year option is where we give you a lump sum payment for all the SRECs that your system will make for the next 15 years. This is priced differently. It's not priced per REC, it's priced per kilowatt DC of your system size. It's power rating. And so you just multiply your system size times this number here. This would be 14.4 kilowatts times 155, and then you get your number. There's a lot of risk based into this. If the VCEA law gets struck down, we won't be able to sell your RECs. If you have issues with your system, there's a lot of risk baked into this number. So if you work it out per REC, it's much lower than some of the other options. But for some customers, they just want to take the money now and they can deploy that and do something they want right away. And by far the most popular option is the 3 or 5 year annuity plus options that we offer. And so in these plans, what you're doing is we're locking in the price per REC for every REC that your system can generate and can mint for a term. So for example, for 3 years, every X REC that you mint, you'll be paid $41 for. And so to make this graph and to make this useful to you, we've had to make some assumptions about what your system will produce, because we're obviously not sure exactly how much energy it will produce over the course of the year. There's weather, there's outages, there's shade, there's all kinds of stuff, snow. But in general, we think that a 14.4 kilowatt system in this example will make about 17 SRECs per year. And let's see, and so that if you kind of do the math, and there's some seasonality and some rounding in here, but we roughly think over the course of 3 years, it's just over $2,000 you'd earn for this size system. And we've also broken this out in this way. So if you look below here, there's 3 different colors of these graphs you have, and this is broken down by quarter here. So we're in the second quarter of 2023. And if your system came online last year, let's say this one came online in 2022, you can actually backmint and make SRECs to the start of this year. Unfortunately, if your system was making energy last year, we can't convert any of that energy to mint SRECs. It's just a rule in Virginia. However, we can make any energy that you made since the beginning of the year, convert that and mint SRECs. So this red bar graph is saying that there's probably some number of SRECs, in this case 3, that we think you can back mint and get paid for right away. Now, if your system was offline for a couple months, we haven't found that out yet because we don't know your energy, but this is what we estimate. And then we think in the next 4 quarters or the next year, you'll make so many RECs. And so in this particular option, the 3-year annuity plus and the 5-year, your initial payment that you're going to receive includes the previous quarters back minted and the next 4 quarters estimated. And so that estimated number is a finite number of RECs. Let's say it's 17 RECs. And you're going to be paid for 17, let's say, plus 3, and that's however many RECs. Now, if your system makes more than the prepayment that we pay you up front, we will just adjust that in the first of the quarterly payments that continue to the end of the 3-year term. So there's no circumstance in which we would, you'd get underpaid for your actual production. It's just that after that prepayment period, we'll correct it in the first quarterly payment, if our estimated prepayment was under or over what the actual was. And so that's pretty popular. Just to put some money in your pocket right away, put toward paying off your system, and also lock in the price per rec. The 5-year operates exactly the same way. It's just a lower price per SREC. All right, so this is how this page works. If you were to want to actually continue with one of these options, you would click preview the contract, scroll through it if you want, prepare the contract. And then if your browser does not have too many security restrictions on it, the contract that you can sign will print out right here in the page. If it doesn't do that, you can also click this link here to open the contract in a new tab. For some people, this is a pain, but you can review the contract. It's the same as what we saw in the preview with all the details of your system filled in. We're going to hit start signing, and you just simply put your signature there, hit next, and sign this Schedule A form, which is required for us to be designated as the manager of your system in PJM GATS. And that's it. You've signed the contract, and then the next step that you can do is to link your bank account to get direct deposit. This is highly recommended. There are 2 ways to link your bank account. You can link it through a service called Plaid, which many banks support. It's essentially you're going to be entering in your username and password for your bank, and that is not saved in our system or anywhere. Some people like that. Usually it's typically the younger crowd who's comfortable with this kind of more modern style of linking. If you don't want to do it that way, that's totally fine. You can also link your bank account using the traditional method where you provide a routing number, bank name, and account number, and type, and then save and connect that anytime. If you can't, for whatever reason, do a direct deposit, you can also email us and we can send you a check as well. So we are still making a lot of advances to our portal platform here over time, but you get the basic gist of the simplicity of signing the contract and getting going. And over time, all the SRECs and the energy generation that you make will be printed out here, and you can view your contract once it's signed. So I'm going to stop this and go back to my other slide deck. And so if we get into the differences between the contracts, I have some information about that. And the final thing I'll say, I know I'm a couple minutes over my 20 minutes estimated, is how long does it take to get your first payment? It depends, but once you sign the contract, depending on whether we need to gather some extra details about your system, like where your arrays are and how to get access to your energy, it could take a week. We register your system in PJM GATS. That takes 1 to 3 weeks. Once you're approved by PJM GATS, which pretty much always happens, it can be 1 to 4 weeks between when you're approved and the next time we submit energy to the tracking system, which is the beginning of each month. So if you get approved in like the first or second or third day of the month, we're probably not going to be able to submit energy till when we cycle that to the next month. So there's some variability there. But once at the beginning of each month, your energy is submitted and processed by the tracking system. For every 1,000 kilowatt hours or 1 megawatt hour, an SREC will mint. So for example, if you made 2,300 kilowatts in a month, that's 2 SRECs plus 300 kilowatt hours. That's a carryover that will be used to make SRECs in the subsequent month. And then it's 1 week to get a deposit. So about 4 to 10 weeks to getting your first payment. In terms of submitting energy to the tracking system, we are very much the leader of all the aggregators in terms of automations and ease of setting up these automations. We do everything we can to get you on automated energy submissions because, man, what a pain in the neck it is to have to type this in every month. So we have full energy automation for Enphase, SolarEdge, Fronius, and SMA. A lot of times the installer can pre-provide access for some of these. And then for some of the other not as popular inverter manufacturers, we will either ask for permission to log in with the user password. We may be able to, like in the case of Generac, get a URL for a private page where we can pull your energy for you. or Tesla and GAF and SunPower. Some of those can auto email us reports every month that we will pull the numbers from. So we bend over backward to make it extremely easy for you to get this energy submitted to GATS every month. And there's a side benefit is that because we're so involved in your energy and we're not hands off about it, we really want to make sure that your energy is properly submitted so you can maximize your SRECs. If your system's not operating well, or if it goes offline, or if we see that it fell off the internet for the last 6 days of the month, we're going to not submit your energy until we make sure we do that properly. So we have a whole piece of software and also some human interactions to make sure that we're kind of monitoring your system. So we're kind of like an additional set of eyes on the performance of your system when you sign up for SRECs with SunTribe. All right, so I'm going to pause there. There's some questions and that I can jump into, but I want to make sure that we get a survey of the any questions that have been submitted. So Daniel, can you help tee up some questions that may have come up during the presentation so far?
Yeah, happy to. We have an anonymous question submitted. What is the downside here? Is there potential to lose funds, or it is just a question of whether or how much one can pay now in order to gain potential future income?
Okay, so downsides. Downsides is the first topic, so that's great. Other downsides for signing up for SRECs. Well, I think I explained there's no downsides in terms of you're giving up some additional revenue somewhere else. For residential, so an SREC represent this attribute of energy. If you sell the attribute, technically, you can't make a formal claim to say that I, the owner of the system, am consuming renewable energy. Now, that's kind of a wonky point, but for residential owners, this is really not important. If you are a larger commercial owned solar system and you want to make a marketing claim or substantiate the type of energy that you're using and producing on site, then selling your SRECs would limit your ability to make a particular claim. So whoever ultimately procures an SREC is able to count that SREC toward a goal. So for residential people, we don't come across any issues with regards to that. For larger systems, that's something you need to think about when you sign up for SRECs. As a side note, you can do SREC swaps to get some arbitrage on the value of SRECs. You can purchase SRECs from a different region and sell your Virginia SRECs here. It's in some situations, SRECs seem like an imperfect solution to tracking and purchasing types of energy for larger entities and also providing incentives to residential homeowners. So in the residential homeowners, there's really no downside. I'm not sure I fully answered the second part of that question. Daniel, can you help me try to interpret what was asked?
Yeah, I guess, is there potential to lose funds, which I think you've covered to some extent, or is it, how do you think about, an anonymous attendee, feel free to clarify. I think, how do you think about maybe picking between, the different options? Is that really the big question here, is just picking between maybe one of the annuity plans or mint and sell?
Yeah, there's certainly, when you look at the different plans here, there's some downsides to some of these plans, like if you sign up for the 15-year, you might leave some value on the table over time. The mint and sell option, there's, the price could drop down substantially. We think it's pretty stable. We think it's going to be stable. We have like a outlook for the next number of months, but the price is going down. And so there's some protections that you can get by signing up for an annuity plan. So you might leave a little bit of value on the table, some upside on the table if you sign up for one of these price lock-in plans. But just as a for instance, for people who qualify for 2022 SRECs and signed up last year and chose the 3-year or the 5-year plan, it looks like they're definitely going to make out better than people who signed up for the mint and sell option. We had a more rosy outlook of what the pricing would be over the midterm. And that changed when we realized that the Virginia DER SREC market was oversupplied as of Q4 2022. And so, yeah, the price took a little jump down. So yeah, it doesn't mean that signing up one of these, the market versus the 3-year, it's really hard to say. I think we're priced really aggressively on all of these, and the kind of price is stabilized. So I think what it comes down to for people is like, I think I should just pick a plan that gets me most of the value. It's predictable, and I don't have to worry about the market price tanking, or for example, a liquidity issue, and being able to transact these SRECs. So we probably touch upon that again. I see
Great.
some more questions.
Yeah, two questions from Tom here. Do you submit 1099s for annual payments, and do joint owners, spouses, also sign the contract?
We do not report your earnings to the IRS. We've talked to a number of tax lawyers and stuff about this, and this really between you and your accountant or your tax advisory. But yeah, we're not going to report that to the IRS. I think some people just report it as ordinary income. But yeah, we don't submit that. What was the second question?
Do joint owners / spouses also sign the contract?
Joint owners, when they're on the contract, there's the owner name of the system can be represented on the contract. So it could be a husband and wife or something, or two people, or even an LLC could be the owner of the system. That's very important for us to know the correct owner when we fill out the Schedule A form and get you signed up in GATS, and also for the contract with us. The signatory, that there has to be one name as the signatory who's signing on the line as the owner. So if you preview your contract and you see that the owner name is not accurate, or that you're having two names in the signature area, that'll get rejected, because we can only have one name as a signature, but you can have multiple as the owner. So just email us. Our current platform doesn't allow a lot of editability once you fill out the form. Our new improved platform will do so, but just a quick email to us if there's any of that stuff that needs correction.
Great. Last question, or submitted so far. Last year's range of SREC prices was $45 to $69. Does this price tends to change seasonally, i.e. more valuable in winter versus summer?
No, it doesn't change seasonally. The reason why the price is going down is because of this situation. So when the market first started getting heated up in 2021, there was an undersupply of SRECs, right? And so when there's a higher demand than supply, the price goes up. And there is what's called an alternative compliance penalty in Virginia, which most states that have renewable portfolio standards have. And so it's kind of a soft ceiling for what the maximum value of an SREC is going to be in this compliance market. And so it's $75 in Virginia. It does go up by 1% every year, but essentially before last fall, there was no oversupply. So the price was very close to the soft ceiling, right, in the upper 60s. And I think we were transacting the highest price for any aggregator. And then once we hit that oversupply bit, the market price started to fall off of the ACP, and it kind of took a step jump down out of the 60s into the kind of the mid to low 50s. And so this oversupply condition is expected to continue. The demand is, it's not like a typical market where it's kind of, the demand is highly variable. The demand is pretty much known. It's a function of the expected energy that's going to be required in the state of Virginia. And then the amount of SRECs are a function off of the pretty predictable energy demand in the state. So the demand is not going to change unless a massive change to the Virginia Clean Economy Act, like that carve out, for example, goes from 1% to 2 to 3%. That could change the pricing dynamics, but that's a big political thing that would happen. And so we don't really predict that happening anytime soon. But yeah, the price will continue to slide as the oversupply widens. More solar SRECs, or more RECs in general, are coming on the market than are demanded. And yeah, there's some big shocks that are coming to this system. There's some different rules that come into play in 2025, and the pace of solar installations will vary. But we, like most aggregators, are predicting kind of a continued oversupply and kind of the price staying closer to where it is.
Great. A couple more questions. Why is the residential carve-out percentage so low?
It was hard fought to get that percent. And Suntribe, we were involved in that fight to get that, and it's different by every state. I know that Virginia RPS is seen as an exemplar of a well executed, well written RPS in a state. And yeah, we do think there's room for the carve out to be increased. That would be amazing. We're we're doing what we can to see if we can get that up. I mean, everybody should write their legislator if you're a fan of this kind of incentive to increase that carve out. But it doesn't look like it's going to happen in any of the next General Assembly or anything like that. But that'd be nice.
Great. If more people are getting solar, would it be better to lock in at 15 instead of the 3 to 5 year contract?
That's a great question. I think that a lot of people are making this calculation and saying, well, there's a lot of uncertainty in 15 years, and there's a lot of risk baked into that price. So the price is a good bit lower. If you think that more solar is coming online, that'll actually increase the supply side of the market, right? Which will make it so that the market price falls faster, in this super simplified example. So I think that the 5-year lock-in is a very smart option if you want to kind of figure out something for longer. Because again, if you sign the 3-year option at 41, and it's going to renew at whatever the 3-year price is at the end of that term, and that new price could be in the upper 20s or lower 30s or whatever it is. And then you'll be seen as really smart having chosen the 5-year for that. So I don't have a crystal ball. All these prices that we have are adjusted for what we think is going to happen in the market. But I think that you're seeing the wisdom of the crowd kind of generally picking the 3 and the 5-year. And then those who want the market price they just believe in the market, that's kind of the best way forward. And yeah, that's really much I can say about that.
Great. Your site says you spot price and sell minted SRECs every 1 to 4 months at the best price. Is there an option for owners to, quote unquote, hoard SRECs for several years?
That's a good question. Yeah. So when we first conceived of our platform, we actually designed in a feature where if you were signing up for the mint and sell option, that you could deauthorize the automated sale of your SRECs in case the owner of those SRECs wanted to not to hold on to them, to hoard them, to potentially sell them later. We have for almost everybody who did that when we started, who would not take the offer and say I'll hold, they saw the price kind of keep going down, and so that was kind of causing some frustration. And so once we explained the market dynamics and how the price is not going to necessarily jump up for any foreseeable reason in the near term, we kind of disabled that option. When we relaunch some new platform features in Q3, Q4 this year, there are going to be some very compelling options for those who want to kind of potentially sit on their SRECs or cash in on them in a different way. But to the question of should you hoard your SRECs for a number of years? Well, it's interesting. So you have to make your SRECs in any given year, obviously, to be able to hold on to them. Now, there's a 5-year bankable period that each like Dominion, in this case, who's the only one required to purchase DER RECs in Virginia, they can hold that REC for 5 years and retire it in any of the 5 years after it was minted in its minting date, and count that towards the RPS goal in that year. But every year that SREC is held, its eligibility life shortens, right, from 5 years to 4 to 3 to 2. And generally what we're seeing is that the appetite for buying previous years SRECs really takes a substantial value hit right now. If we were to try to transact the 2021 SREC, I don't even know if we can do it. And it may be very, very much less than the current market price. So it could be an issue that's peculiar to this market and how it's expected to, what's going to happen in the coming years. But there's no compelling reason I can give you at this moment to hoard it for a number of years. If you're really playing a long game and you think that they're going to be worth more in 4, 5, 6 years, well, then you have to consider that the bankability of these SRECs and the kind of shelf life in the eyes of the buyer is only 5 years. And so given that, plus the oversupply situation, I wouldn't recommend that. If you really are dead set on like just holding on to them and you kind of have a good sense of the rules, what you could do is you could just register in GATS and do it yourself and hold on to them there and see if you can transact those on spot with any aggregator who's willing to do it. But yeah, I think that's where we're at on this. I think that in a different future, a different market, that might be something that would recommend, but I wouldn't recommend it in Virginia.
Great. Next question. Are there any other markets for SRECs besides those created by the ACP?
Yes, you can try to sell your SRECs other places. There's a private market for SRECs, but it's very small. There's really no good outlet to sell your SRECs right now in any other market. Virginia will continue to be the best marketplace. If for whatever reason the Virginia market dries up, or the VCEA is torpedoed or something, then yeah, we would look for other markets. And you might see other markets change rules to be able to allow their standards to make other RECs eligible in that state, like it used to be in Pennsylvania. But yes, I mean, that's our job as aggregators, to kind of have a longer view of what are the options to sell SRECs in certain contingencies. But right now, as Virginia is best. Your SRECs, it'd be so nice if you could sell them in Virginia SRECs in DC for $425 an SREC, but there are just rules about that, and where your generator is certified to mint RECs in other states.
Great. Is there a chance that the SREC market will get capped, as in a situation where a new solar owner will not be able to sign up and sell SRECs?
That is an interesting question. I don't think that the registration, I think the ability to register will be, there's no indication that there'd be any restriction on registering. It's more of a question of, once you make the SRECs, is, in terms of capping, would Dominion just stop buying RECs if they've got their supply all figured out? And that's certainly a dynamic that can happen. It's also, you get a significant amount of protection against that circumstance by going with a leading large volume aggregator like SunTribe in Virginia. And so I can't speak what will happen kind of further out, but I think for the next 5-10 years, they're going to be a really solid option in liquidity for those who've signed up with SunTribe to transact Virginia DER RECs.
Great. Next question, is Dominion the only buyer?
In Virginia, yes, for carve-out RECs.
Great.
Yes, and there's a lot of confusion, like, does my local utility buy them? No, it's really just Dominion that's required to buy DER RECs in the state as a tier 1 utility.
Cool. Got a couple more, trying to sort through these real quick. Let's see. Cool. If you have not signed up and your system was installed last year, how far back can you mint SRECs?
January 1st this year.
Great.
That's a rule. Long story, but it would be really nice if we could back mint them further than that. The rules of Virginia are actually a little bit fuzzy on that, but we will continue to try to push to open that up. It makes sense that you should be able to make them, since when you came online, it certainly benefits the ratepayers in the eyes of the State Corporation Commission. Next.
Great. I have another question around, completing the initial form that we have on our site. If you're missing some of the key details, like your system size. So are there instructions for that? How can folks get help with that process to fill out an initial survey, or kind of the next steps?
Yeah, absolutely. You can work directly with us before submitting that form. That form should allow you to put in an estimate, and we can change it later. I'm about to share my screen with you and show you how you can, well, I'm not going to do that right now, but you can change on your screen. There's a drop-down menu. If you click your system, if you put in a system size of 10 kilowatts, you can update it to be the correct size before you move on, or you can certainly call us and we can change that. But the array details, if you've signed up by yourself, if you've signed up on your own, then in that circumstance, and you didn't know your array details, we're going to work with you via email and go back and forth till we lock all that stuff in. If your installer referred you, they've already provided some of that information, and so that's pretty easy for us to figure out. Same thing with energy access. If your installer refers you, they've probably pre-provided some of the credentials or password, not passwords, but tokens for us to be able to automatically get your energy. If you've self-referred, depending on the inverter you have, it could be as simple as a click. We send you a link, you click, and you authorize us to get your energy, or it could be more of a guiding you on a quest to get some of the credentials we need to get the automated energy reporting going. But we have Daniel and myself and others to help you guide you through that process.
Great. I just want to make a note to a couple folks who've asked questions about, trying to decide between 3, 5, and 15 year who may have joined a little bit late. We can come back around to that in a few minutes here. I just want to get to some of the newer questions, and we will have this webinar posted on our site and sent back out to you all as well if you missed a couple minutes.
Absolutely.
One of the newer questions, what's the percent of the SRECs value, kind of the difference between your the payment to the generator versus to the buyer? So I think taken another way, maybe like what's the percentage maybe that goes to SunTribe?
Well, when we do the 3 or the 5 year or the 15 year, we're making a bet on the prices, right? So there's a circumstance for those where we lock in the rate, where we buy them for a certain amount. And when we go to sell your 2024 vintage SRECs, we break even, or in the 3rd year, we sell them and we lose. And so for those, we're just choosing a price without knowing exactly what we might be able to sell it on at the future. So that's about as specific as I get on that. And in terms of the mint and sell option, yeah, I mean, we're just the 9.5 combined fee is what you're looking at there, and it's in our interest to get the price as high as we can.
Great. I own a duplex with 2 5.6 kilowatt systems. Would this require 2 separate contracts?
If those 2 systems are separately monitored in your portal, like if you log into your Enphase or whatever the app is, and you see that each one is inspectable as a separate system, yes, we'd register those as 2 systems, right? Unit 1, Unit 2 at the same locality. Definitely, if you have 2 systems and they're connected to 2 separate meters, those are also 2 separate systems. It's for us, it's logically, depending on if you have a pool house and you have a main house, and each of those systems has a separate inverter and a separate way to isolate the production of each of those systems in your portal or your app, then we would register those as separate systems. And you can just fill out that initial questionnaire form for each one. So finalize the sign up process for one, go back to the form, fill it out again, and do that. And we can certainly help guide you through that process.
Great. Are the SRECs transferable in an inheritance or for other reason?
I think in terms of the contract, we when it comes to contracts and change of ownership or inheritance or things like that, we will work with you on that. It could mean that we just decide to end one contract and we could just start another. But the ownership of the SRECs are related to the system. The system owner owns the SRECs. But if you're the system owner and you'd sold the title to the SRECs into the future, just like if you sold land rights under your property, then we do own the aggregator would own the title of those SRECs. So we would have to work out how we're going to deal with that. But there's no circumstance that's come up that we haven't been able to figure out a mutually beneficial way to transfer or end a contract, or or oftentimes you can just settle the value. Two buyers can settle the value. So if you sell your home and you got a couple months left on a 3-year contract, you can just kind of settle that privately, and then the new owner would take a new contract out with us at the start of the term. So we could deal with that on a case-by-case basis, but I don't think that it shouldn't weigh too heavily on the decision. But if you're going to do if you're about to sell your system, if you're about to sell your home and sign up for a 15-year, you're gonna have to disclose to the new owner that you just sold the title to the next 15 years SRECs, and they'd be unavailable to that owner. That's the case.
Great, and that did answer I think one of the next questions around how annuities work with regards to home sale.
Yeah.
Great. I think just 2 more broad strokes questions. One, for folks that maybe missed some of the earlier parts of the webinar, just a quick overview about, how to pick between mint and sell and what are the annuity plans and options for switching between the 2. And then I think just like how to get in touch with us for other sorts of questions.
Yeah. Choosing among the different options. Again, 60% of people, 65% of people choose the 3 or 5-year option, and about 30% choose the market option. I believe that they're both great options. I think that for people who would love the protection of knowing that they have a locked-in price and you're getting the lion's share of the value, potentially leaving a little bit on the table, let's just say it's the difference over the next 3 years is the maximum upside you could get if the market price stays where it is. Let's say that's 10 or 15%, right? And that amounts to at most a couple $100, $300, $400, $500. Is it worth, staying in the mint and sell to get that potential extra number of $100? Or what if the market price goes down substantially, if something happens like that? And then in that case, are you the kind of person who's going to feel bad if you lose out on $400 or $500 compared to the stability that the annuity provides? And so I can't answer that for each person, but certainly both are good options. You're going to extract the most amount of value that you can, or the most that you can in all those options. So I ask that question every day, and I'm just like, it's up to you. But the price, the spot price is just probably not going to go up in the next couple of years for reasons I presented earlier. So take that. I think that's pretty solid.
Great. And then I think if you can just share a little bit more about where folks can learn more, if they have more questions, or how to get in touch with us, that'd be great.
Sure. Yeah. Send us an email, srec@sunstripetrading.com. We have a phone number that we attempt to answer as much as we can. If we're a small company based here in Charlottesville, it's either me, myself, Daniel, or Dylan that will answer the phone. If we don't answer right away, just leave a message. We will return missed calls, but we will return voicemails, and you can be as specific as you want in those voicemails. But we do return every voicemail that we get if we're not able to pick up right away.
Great. I think, yeah, and I will share that email address in the chat for everybody. But otherwise, it seems like that's the questions we have.
Cool. SRECs are legitimately complicated, and it's not something that I think most people are want to commit to memory, all these details, but we want our customers to be educated about this. And so it is absolutely great when we hear from you and ask us hard questions. And so this is a pleasure for us to do. Thank you so much for joining. You have our phone number, your email, and now you know our faces, and you know how much we love talking SRECs. So glad to be in potential relationship with you. And that's it. Thank you all so much.